Hello everybody and welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be starting part 3 on the restoration of this Bally 1956 Night Club bingo machine. In this video we are going to be putting LEDs throughout the whole machine, replacing all of the rubbers, and trying to figure out why the machine doesn't pay out correctly when the yellow line and red line units are stepped up to at least double. So the machine in its current state does not pay out the correct number of credits when either of those units is at either double, triple, or quadruple. So we're going to be looking into that as well. So let's get started. So I figure first we'll start with our LEDs because I ordered a set of LEDs and they just came today. And so here's what we got. In this box we have 5 7-volt flash bulbs that are going to be used for some of the bulbs in the back box. And I also ordered 125 warm white LEDs to replace all the bulbs. So let's get started with doing that. So let's start with the playfield because I actually had 6 spare warm white LEDs already. So the 6 light deflectors down here already have LEDs in them. I just need to put 2 more in these ones and then the playfield will be all LEDs. So we'll take this off, and then there's a bulb. Take the bulb out, put an LED in. You can see how much brighter that is. Put this back on, and there we go. Definitely looks brighter in my eyes. And then we'll do this one. And there we go. The playfield is now all LEDs. So now it's all about changing all of the bulbs in the back box. And as you can see, some of these sockets are loose, and that's probably going to be something I'm going to have to deal with as I'm putting the LEDs in. So I'm probably going to have to either tighten down the sockets or just file or sand them down because, as you can tell, they're not really making the best contact. So the sockets on this machine definitely need work. As I go through and put LEDs into this thing, I will attempt to fix all of the sockets and make sure that all of the LEDs have a really good connection. So I figure we'll do a couple on camera just to show how it looks compared to the light bulbs, and then I'll go ahead and do the rest of this back box off camera. So let's just start with these 4 down here so you can get a clear idea of how the LEDs look versus the bulbs. So this is what 4 warm white LEDs looks like in those 4 spots. And this one you can see is still loose in the socket. So obviously I'm going to have to pull the panel down and tighten up the connections on almost all of these sockets because there are quite a bit of them that were having problems. So that's something I can do off camera. So that's what it looks like. Not too much difference from the bulbs, and I think it'll look really good when I'm done. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all these replaced, get all the sockets nice and tight, and we'll see how the game looks. All right, and this is what the machine looks like with all LEDs. But you might be noticing that the bulbs in the bingo card are still the bulbs. I haven't converted these to LEDs. Well, that's because I figured out that the lights on the bingo card, they run off a separate 17-volt section off the transformer, and so the bulbs that are in here are 20-volt bulbs, and the LEDs, the standard pinball LEDs that you get, like these, are 6.3-volt LEDs. So what happened is I had one of the LEDs in here lit up for about 10 seconds, and it basically melted the LED. I had to fish it back out of there, and that did not go well. So, because they don't make 20-volt LEDs, as far as I'm aware, these lights behind the bingo card are going to have to remain the original bulbs. But, as you can see, some of the bulbs here are missing. Well, that's because when I was taking those bulbs out, some of them literally just fell apart as I was taking them out. So I would assume that those are the original bulbs, and so I ordered a 10-pack of replacement bulbs just to replace the ones that were falling apart. A large majority of the bulbs were just fine, so I just put them back in there. So there's a total of 5 bulbs that I need to replace, and then after that, this machine will have all its bulbs again. But the rest of the machine runs off of a 6-volt section of the transformer, so I converted the rest of the machine, the back box and the playfield, to LEDs, and now it's complete. So I'll go ahead and run this game through a few startup cycles just so you can see what they look like. You can see they're much brighter than the bulbs. And I got some 7-volt flasher bulbs for these bigger sockets here, because those also run off of the 6-volt line. So I think those look good. There go the magic squares. And I did my best to fix some of the sockets. There are still a couple dodgy ones, I think, but for the most part, I got that situation fixed. I just kind of bent the contact that was behind the socket in so there would be more pressure on the LED. So they're all working right now, but I might have to do some more adjustment later. And I actually just saw this LED right here needs some adjustment. So there's still a couple that need some adjustment in the sockets, but it's working very well for the most part. And so this game has now been converted to LEDs. So let's move on to the next thing, which is the playfield rubbers. So when restoring this machine, I obviously wanted to replace all of its rubbers because there's quite a few of them that are cracked and dirty, and it just needs a complete rubber replacement at this point. So I went ahead and I bought a rubber ring kit made specifically for this machine. So it has all the rubbers we need, and it even includes a nice little chart that shows you exactly what rubbers in the kit go where. So this will be very helpful in making sure that all the rubbers go in the right spot. Now, this is a pretty easy table to replace rubbers on because a large majority of them are the same. But one thing I noticed about this game is that these 4 posts right here are red and all the rest of them are yellow. And at first I thought that was just a coincidence, like maybe they got replaced at some point and they're supposed to be yellow. Well, no, that's not the case. These 4 specific posts are supposed to be red. And I looked on this rubber chart, and the rubbers that go on the red posts, the ones labeled B toward the bottom, they're actually slightly bigger. So these red posts are obviously supposed to have slightly bigger rubbers, and I can tell that the rubbers that are on here match the ones on the yellow posts. So obviously someone didn't put the correct size rubbers on here, which is fine. They're the same size posts, but I might as well put the correct size rubber on now that I have a kit of new rubbers. So doing a rubber swap in this machine is about as easy as it gets. All you do is just pull off the existing rubber and then just pop a new one on. But I do want to show the replacement of this rubber here. They call this the ball rebound rubber, because that's a little bit more complex, so I will show that one. Okay, so I went ahead and pulled all the rubbers off except for that one and the plunger rubber. This is a rubber that you need to make sure that you get replaced, because if you're running a machine with a broken or hardened plunger rubber, that could potentially damage the pinball and then possibly damage the playfield as well. So when you're doing rubbers, you really want to make sure that you replace the plunger rubber. So here's the one out of this machine, and as you can see, it has degraded quite a bit. So when you have a rubber that looks like that, you really need to make sure that you get it replaced. But let's go over how to replace this rubber, because this one is the most complex one to replace. On this side of the rubber, it is held in by a nut, and so what you want to do is take that nut off, and then this rubber should just fall onto the playfield. And there we go. After doing that, the nut is now loose, so you can just go ahead and hold on to the screw and take the nut off, and then this whole thing just comes right out. And this is indeed the original 1956 rubber. It says Bally on it. So there you go. You can see how much of the rubber is just gone. This is the one that had the mold on it. So this rubber has never been replaced. So as you can see on the back side, we still have a little nut to take off, and then we can go ahead and put the new rubber on. So in this rubber kit, the rebound rubber is different. As you can see, it's a big thick rubber, and the only hole that is in it is where the screw goes. So we don't have that big metal piece inside the rubber on this new one. So you would install it just by putting this up to it, putting the screw in, putting the nut on, and then that's basically all you have to do. So this rubber is a little bit different than the original, but it'll work just the same. Before I install it though, and before I install any of the other rubbers, I'm gonna go ahead and give this playfield a good cleaning because there's a lot of dirt on it just from me working around the machine. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean the playfield up, and then we can replace some rubbers. Okay, so now that I cleaned the playfield a little bit, I'll show you how to get this new rubber installed. So the first thing we'll want to do is put the original screw through the rubber, get the rubber back into the mounted position, and we don't really need this nut anymore. We can get away with just using this one, I think. Let's just see how much room we have. Oh yeah, so we can just tighten this singular nut down, and then that will hold on the rubber just fine. So I'm not going to go too crazy tight with it because the screw kind of goes into the rubber a little bit. So that's as tight as it needs to be. So now we have a nice brand new ball rebound rubber that's not going to go anywhere. So that's how you reinstall one of those. All right, here's what the machine looks like now after all of its rubbers have been replaced. So all fresh new rubbers now. And when I was going through and replacing these, I actually removed all of the posts from the playfield so I could clean up all the posts and also give the playfield a better clean since the posts were not in the way anymore. So I did that. Playfield looks a lot better, and I think the posts look a lot better as well. Some of them were very dirty, and a lot of them had old dried up rubber still left in them from where the old original rubbers used to be. I used a little metal pick to get all that out. So everything looks good now. So now let's move on to the score multiplier timing issues, and we'll see if we can get this game fully working again. Okay, now it's time that we try to diagnose the problem of why this machine does not want to give out the right number of credits when the yellow line and red line units are stepped up to at least double. So let me give you an overview as to how the credit and scoring system works in this game, and I'm going to kind of go in deep into the inner workings of this game, so try to stay with me here. So when the game goes about doing its thing, the search disk is rotating constantly, and if you have balls in the holes, these search relays, these are the 5 search relays that you hear clicking, those will start to click, and the search disk is what controls those relays clicking because it is searching, that's why it's called the search disk, using these relays to see if you have a winning combination. And if it finds that you do have one of these relays will lock on, and then it will advance the credit counter up here to the correct number of credits. So the first thing we want to do is start ruling some things out. And we can actually do that pretty easily just by asking the question of what is changing during the process when you shoot the ball, land it in a hole where you win credits, and the game gives you credits. Well, not much. The yellow line unit and the red line units do not move during that process. All these do is step themselves up, and then that is responsible for lighting the correct light on the back glass, and it completes the circuit to the score multiplier unit up here so that the machine can award you the proper amount of credits if you are on double, triple, or quadruple scoring. So because these do not move, and because say if you have the, I'm going to reset this, say if you have the yellow line unit stepped up just once, like that, what that'll do is it'll light this light right here, and so this is one of the arrow lights. And so what this game is doing right now is if you don't have it set to a state where you can get double, triple, or quadruple scoring on either the yellow or red line unit, the credit payouts will work just fine. And that includes the steppers being on these 4 arrows right here, one of these 4, because it hasn't gotten to the double scoring light yet. And so even when it's in that position, it will still give you the right number of credits. So we can eliminate the yellow line unit and the red line unit as being the problem. We can also eliminate the score unit because that has nothing to do with the scoring, the double, triple, or quadruple scoring. All that has to do with is advancing the odds on the front and making sure that you win the right number of credits regardless. So we can eliminate that because that is not directly controlling the score multiplier. We can also eliminate these 2 units down here, the magic square feature unit, that has nothing to do with it, and the timer unit. I haven't really gone over what the timer unit does, and the super simple explanation for the timer unit is it lets the game know what state it's in, like which ball is in play, and it controls whether or not the magic squares can be rotated. So the timer unit will step up every time a new ball loads into the plunger, and it just kind of controls the game's current state. So that's the simple explanation for what that does, and I don't think that is the problem. And the reflex unit is not the problem because that has nothing to do with the problem we're facing. So what's actually changing during that process? Well, we know that one of the search relays will lock on, but I think we can eliminate the search relays as being the problem because I checked every switch on these, I cleaned them all up, and they're all in the correct position, and they all either open or close properly when the search relays get pressed. And we can also eliminate the spotting disc, and the entire mixer assembly as being the problem because the machine does work when awarding credits when we don't have a score multiplier involved. And we know that the mixer assembly is working correctly because the machine is correctly randomizing the features and odds whenever you insert a nickel. So we know the mixer is working fine. We can eliminate the extra ball unit, that has nothing to do with the problem. Same with the magic square assembly and all of these relays in here. And we can eliminate the counter as well because all these switches do is basically just tell the machine if it's got credits in it already, and then that will allow you to push the red button or the yellow button too on the front of the machine and not have to spend a nickel. So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with this unit here, the replay counter unit. And this stepper is different from all of the other ones in that it doesn't use little round contacts like this. It actually uses a PCB on the backside, and the wipers that are on it just go across big copper contacts on that PCB. And this unit is responsible for breaking the circuit once the counter reaches the correct number of credits depending on the odds that you've lit on the back glass. So every so often when the counter is stepping up to give you credits, this will step. And so once that reaches a particular step, then it will stop giving credits. And another thing I wanted to show in the manual here is the operation of the search disk. So you can see the diagram of it right here. So when this disk is rotating like this, you can see that the wipers on it are only activating on a specific row for whatever position this disk is in. And that is shown right here. So when the search disk is rotating, at any one position, one of these rows will be activated. So when it's rotating, it's really going like this. That's what it's doing when it's rotating. And so you can see what contacts are being made when the disk rotates. They're all labeled right here. And those contacts are part of the search relay assembly. As you can see, it kind of lays out that right here. But we can eliminate the search relays as the problem, like I said. So as you can see, when the disk is rotating, in this section, it's checking for horizontal wins, this for vertical wins, and this for diagonal wins. And then this is where it checks the corners to see if you have a win. And so when the corners score 5 in line feature is lit, when you have the 4 corners lit, when the search disk gets to this position, one of the search relays will lock on and it will give you the credits for that. But you can also see it talks about the score multiplier unit as well. So at this point in the search disk's rotation, the score multiplier unit will reset. And then once it gets up to here, it will step once. As you can see, that's what it says it's going to do. It'll step again when it gets here, and it'll step up one more time when it gets here. And then once it advances up here and then back, it will reset. And the machine does do that. And it will only do that under two conditions. The first one being either the red or yellow line unit is stepped up to at least double, and the timer unit right here will be at its fourth step. So as long as the timer unit is at its fourth step and one of those units is stepped up to at least double, the machine will activate the score multiplier unit, just as it says it will do in the manual. And so when the game is searching for wins, this unit will go step, 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 back, step, 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 back. And it will do that constantly. And all that is doing is just searching to see if you have a win that is part of the score multiplier system. So if you have a yellow line or red line unit win, and one of those is stepped up to at least double, this will make sure that you get the proper amount of credits for the correct multiplier. And I actually did go ahead and clean up all of the steppers back here. I took them all off this panel, and I did notice that the score multiplier unit had a wire on the wiper assembly. It's behind the gear that was cut. And I could see exactly where it went because there's a blob of solder on one of the wipers. So I soldered that back on, and that changed nothing. So I don't think we have a problem with the score multiplier unit because I looked at the wipers on it and they all looked good. So I think we can eliminate this unit as well. So that leaves us with the replay counter unit. And so let me show you what that looks like in the manual. So here's the diagram for the replay counter unit. And here's an illustration of what that PCB looks like. And there are several wipers that are kind of going horizontally like this. And when the counter rotates, pretend my finger is the wipers, those will move down like this. And depending on the position of the wipers, that will either make or break the circuit when the machine is giving you credits. And this chart right here shows all of the possible situations that will step the replay counter unit. And to kind of give you an idea for what all this means, it has an example right here. It says on a regular 3-in-line score of 24 replays. So if you get a 3 in a row and the credit number for that on the back glass is lit up as 24, that will give you 24 credits. It says the circuit is effective through the number 4 replay circuit strip. So if we look on this chart here for a regular, see how it says regular, double, triple, quadruple, so that's for the score multiplier. So if we look for a regular 3 in a row for 24 credits, and so that will be right here. As you can see, we have regular, 3 in line, and that's right there. So that is controlled by switch 11A, I believe, on the control unit. I think that's what those switches are mentioning. And so see how it's labeled as number 4? So if you look on the replay counter diagram right here, number 4 is right there. So as long as one of the wipers is on this little copper section that is labeled as number 4, it will continually give you credits until the wiper on that contact moves off. So that's how that works. And as you can see, we have different contacts for double, triple, and quadruple, as you can see. So if we were to get a 3 in a row for 24 credits, 24, 72, and 144 would be lit on the back glass as shown right here. But if you had one of the line units stepped up to double, then it is number 8 that is responsible for completing the circuit and giving you 48 credits for a double 3 in a row. And so number 8 is this one. So it will be this contact that is responsible for giving you either the remainder of the credits, because this game can award credits with the score multiplier unit in 2 different ways. Either it can give you all of the credits at once, or it'll give you the base credits first and then give you the remainder of the credits. And that is all to do with the exact time that the ball lands in the hole and what position the score multiplier unit is currently in. So that's a completely random thing that happens. It'll either give you it all at once, or it'll give you the base credits and then the rest of them. And that is mentioned in the manual right here. So that is how I know that is how the machine works. And then this also explains how the score multiplier unit works. It says double scores are registered with the score multiplier unit as first step, triple scores the second step, and quadruple the third step. And then the regular scores are registered with the score multiplier unit at 0. So that is how the score multiplier unit works to give you credits. And so what I think is happening is that since the replay counter unit is obviously working when it gives a base amount of credits, when it gives out credits listed under the regular sections here, I think we might have a wiper alignment problem on this PCB here, because double, triple, and quadruple are all not working regardless of what set of odds is lit on the back glass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the replay counter unit off of the front panel, and we're going to look at the wipers on it and see if any of them are misaligned, because at this rate, I don't know what other problem would be causing this. So let's go ahead and take a look at that unit. So the replay counter unit is right here, and it can come off just by removing these two screws right here. So let's go ahead and get that off and take a look at it. And there we go, there is the unit. So this is what the replay counter unit PCB looks like, and you can see the wipers on each of the contacts, but it doesn't look like any of them are misaligned. They look okay. So when this thing steps, it will move each of the wipers like this. And I'm just looking to see if maybe it misaligns itself during the movement, but I'm not really seeing that. Huh. And then when this thing resets, it just sends it right back like that. So when seeing that, I now have no idea what is causing the problem, unless there's a short on one or more of these wires, which it doesn't look like there is. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the replay counter unit. So at this point, I'm not really sure where to go from here. Let me think about that. Well, I thought for sure that the problem was going to be on the replay counter unit, but I just went through and looked at the wipers, and I checked continuity with the multimeter throughout certain positions, and everything checked out. So it's obviously not the replay counter unit. So that leads me to believe that either we have a problem with these switches that are responsible for pulsing the replay counter, or we have a problem with the timing of the control unit itself. So we might have a problem with one of the switches, because if we look back at the switches that are responsible for stepping up the replay counter, it's 12A, 11A, and 10A. So those three switches. And if we look at the control unit diagram, 10A, 11A, and 12A are right there. And if we look at the switch chart, those three switches are normally open. And that makes sense because they pulse the replay counter. So they will go closed for a second so that the counter can pulse. So I think we might have a problem not with the score multiplier unit circuit, but with the actual switches that pulse the counter. Because you can see here, switch 12A, it says, pulses replay counter when the score unit is at first or third step. So that means when either the first set of odds are lit or the third set of odds are lit. That switch will be the one responsible for pulsing up that coil. 11A is responsible for the second, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh step. And 10A is responsible for the eighth step. And that makes sense because the replay counter unit needs to be pulsed correctly for different situations. So I think what I'm going to do to test the switches on that unit is I'm going to manually advance the odds to a specific value, and then we're going to test to see if the replay counter unit steps correctly and it gives me the right amount of credits. So I'm going to fold this panel back up. I'm going to put the replay counter unit back in, and I guess we will play a couple games to test those switches. Okay, I figured out why that we have 3 different switches responsible for pulsing the replay counter. So when it's at the first and third step, the odds that are lit are a multiplier of 4. So for every 4 credits that you get, the replay counter will step up. For these positions, it's a multiplier of 6. So every 6 credits will cause the replay counter unit to step up. The 8th step, I think it's going to pulse that replay counter every 12 credits. So that is what those switches are designed to do. They pulse it at the right times for the right odds. So let's go ahead and turn on the game and test some of those switch functions. And there we go, 6 credits. It's almost as if this machine thinks it's in triple score mode instead of double. All right, I think I have figured out the problem with the score multiplier situation, and I'm pretty sure it has everything to do with the search disk, because I was looking at the manual, and right here, this little chart describes what happens when the search disk is moving. I kind of already explained this. But these numbers indicate the position of wiper A on the search disk, and that is this wiper right here. And as you can see on the search disk, we have labeled contacts going from 0, and they count up by 5, and they go all the way up to 49 and back to 0. So the search disk, when it rotates, it goes in this direction. So it goes from 49 down. And if you look at the chart here, if we go in the direction of the search disk when it's rotating, when wiper A gets to spot 33, the score multiplier unit step will advance if one of the colored line units is stepped up to at least double. So I looked at the manual and on the switches on the control unit, and it is these 2 switches right here that are responsible for advancing and resetting the score multiplier unit, which is this stepper here. And so what I figured out is the search disk, the wiper, I'm going to go ahead and just rotate this manually so we can see those wipers. So right here is wiper A, and I know the lighting right now is not very good, but the contacts are labeled on the actual disk itself. So if you take a look, you can see, like right there, it says 45, and then down there it says 40. So they're labeled on this disk. And actually a better thing to look at would be when the score multiplier unit resets, and that happens at when it gets right back to 50, which is contact 0. So when this wiper gets back to contact 0, the switch that resets the score multiplier unit will be closed. So if we start rotating this disc. So right now it's at contact 0 and the reset switch is not closed. So if we go ahead and rotate this, that is one of the advance switches. So when that closes, it advances the score multiplier unit. So I'm going to keep rotating it, and it's going to probably do that again. There's another one. We're going to wait for this switch to activate because this is the reset switch for the score multiplier unit. So I'm going to keep rotating it until we get that switch to do its thing. See if I can get a better light on there. You can see there it went right there. It's starting to go right now. But if we look at where wiper A is, it's all the way down here at the bottom. It's right there. Let's see if I can get the light on that. But if you look at where wiper A is, it's all the way down at the bottom right here, directly across from row 0. And by looking at the labeled numbers on this disc, it is at contact row 25. So this wiper is currently sitting right there. And what should be happening when it's at 25 is it shouldn't be doing anything. It should, the score multiplier unit, if it's active, will be stepped up once. And as you can see, 25 is right before where it hits the second score multiplier unit step. So what's happening is that the search disk is installed 180 degrees off from where it should be. Because right now, wiper A should be at 0, but it's at 25. So I think what our issue is that we have incorrect timing because of the position of the search disk. And that would be why that the machine doesn't give you the proper amount of credits, because essentially what's going on is this thing is stepping at the incorrect time. And that's due to the timing, the position of this disk. So what I need to do is take apart the wiper assembly on the search disk, rotate it 180 degrees, and then start the game up and run it again. So after I do that, the game should award credits properly when the score multiplier unit and the yellow and red line units are in play. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting this apart, and we'll see what we can do to get it working. Okay, so I took the screw and the spring off of the edge of the search disk, and that kind of sort of frees it. So you can see it kind of moves now, but it's attached to a section of the control unit in here, and I was wondering about how I'm going to be able to get just the wiper portion off. But I see now, you're not going to see it, but there are 2 screws that screw right into the little wiper assembly of the disc. And I think if I remove those, it's going to be kind of a challenge to do. But I think once those are out, the actual wiper assembly can be separated from the control unit. And so then I'll be able to take it and rotate it 180 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do with that. All right, I know I didn't get the best camera angle for that, but I removed 2 screws right there and right there. And so now I think the wiper assembly is separated. Oh no, it's gonna have to come off. Oh shoot. Oh crap. Yeah, that didn't do what I was hoping that it would do. I'm gonna have to take the search disk completely apart, which means desoldering all the wires around here, taking this assembly off, and then pulling the... Actually, you know what? I wonder if I can do it with just... If I just hold these up, I wonder how far this... This is kind of... How am I going to... Oh, but how do I separate it from the shaft is my question. That should have been the only thing holding it to the shaft. This should be separated now. It's still pulling the shaft with it. This is a separate piece, but it's still coming out like a unit. Is this thing just like stuck? Because it shouldn't have to be tied to the shaft. Oh, there we go. Okay. No, that's not right either. I don't want the shaft to come out. I just want the disc. I just want the wipers out. I don't want the shaft out because I can't get the shaft out. The shaft, what is keeping that against the shaft? Is there another screw? I removed these screws, and so that should separate. It should just come right off. Why is it tied to the shaft still? That's my question. So 0 is there. This shouldn't be tied to the shaft now because I unscrewed those screws. It should just pop off. What is causing it not to? I mean, I know that these can be, I know that these are in the way, but I don't think. So it looks like I can actually remove these little metal wire contacts, and so that'll make it a lot easier for me to get access to the search disk. Let's get those out of the way. So it just seems to me like this should not be tied to the shaft. Oh, I see why it's not coming off. The little metal pieces here are physically preventing the wiper assembly from coming out. So I have to remove this and this. And it looks like that is held on by, oh wow, 6 screws. Okay, so I'm gonna have to remove those, so that's gonna take me a minute. Coming out, a nut or something on the back? Don't tell me there's a nut on the back. There is a nut. Oh gosh. Well, hopefully getting the other one out isn't gonna be as much of a pain in the butt. Okay, where's it at? Right there. Oh, nightmare. Oh wait, why is this moving? Is this whole thing free? Oh, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to remove the wiper assembly. All right, I got it. There it is. So there's probably a nut on the top one. Yep, there is. And it's got a wire harness attached to it. Oh, that's wonderful. This one's easy because it's right there. Easy. This one's going to be a little bit more of a pain in the butt because the nut is way deep in where a bunch of wires are, and then this one up here is hooked into a wire harness, so I have to make sure that those got that one. And this screw is easy because there's no nut. So this one out. And now we get to the hardest one to do because it is nestled between a million wires and it's way down here. And I got it. Aha, I got it. Okay, so now with all that removed, the entire spotting disc mechanism is now free. So what I want to do is see if I can pull this out without pulling out the shaft. Oh, good, I can. Because, yeah, this entire thing needs to come off. There it is. It is off of its little thing, and it is keyed, which I already knew beforehand, so putting it back in shouldn't be too terribly hard. I just have to rotate it, because right now it's like this. I just have to rotate it so that it's like, can you even do that though? To rotate this whole, to rotate, shoot. Oh, does this have to come off too? I think the whole thing might have to come off. So it looks like this just comes, there we are. Got it. Well, now it's the next day. I decided I needed to stop working for the night because it was getting pretty dark and a random thunderstorm started to come up. So I had to bring the machine in so it wouldn't get rained on. So what I did with the search disk, I took it out, I rotated it 180 degrees, put it back in, and it is keyed for that. So you can turn it 180 degrees and still put it back in and it'll fit into the key. So I kind of got it in there now, but I have to put these little metal holders back in that holds the actual search disk assembly onto the shaft. So I need to put those back on. I need to screw the actual wiper assembly back to the shaft. I have to screw this back on. It just fits on one of the holders. And then I should be able to test out the search disk and we'll see if it gives the correct amount of credits when the score multiplier unit is involved. All right, going back together actually wasn't that hard. So now the search disk is reassembled. And so now if we take the wipers that have wiper A on them, so this set of wipers here, and we bring those up to contact 0, watch this switch right here. That is the reset for the score multiplier unit. And now it happens when wiper A is at 0. So now the search disk is back in the correct position. So let's go ahead and plug the game in, turn it on, and we'll see if we have a fully working game now. All right, I have the game running now, and as you can see, the search disk is working. So there were no issues when doing this repair. Things are looking good. I did have to fix an issue with these two gears here because these little arms back there, they're called the drag arms. This gear somehow slipped out of its right timing. I just had to spin it back to its correct position because what was happening is when the machine was running, the timer unit kept advancing every time that the control unit made a revolution. And I didn't think that was right, because say for example, if you shot the 5th ball and you're trying to go for extra balls by pushing the yellow button and inserting credits, the timer unit would keep on stepping up. And what happens on these is how these are wired. The timer unit is a 39 step unit, and once it reaches its final step, it will tilt the machine. So I didn't think that was right, and when I reset this gear back to its proper position, it stopped doing that. So now I think the game is back to its correct state of operation again. So let's go ahead and play a bingo round with the yellow and red line units stepped up, and we'll see if it works. All right, I've gone ahead and started up the game, and I have the red line unit stepped up to double. So I'm gonna go check the back glass and see what line is a red line, and then we can get a 3 in a row on it. So this top line is a red line, and this is number 25. So if we get numbers 4, 25, and 14, we should get double the amount of credits for a 3 in a row. So for a 3 in a row with this set of odds lit, it would normally be 6 credits. So if we get this line, we should get 12 credits. So here we go. Let's see if it goes up to 12. Actually, I have to shoot the next ball. So after I do that, let's see if it goes up to 12. There it is. That is the first time it has ever done that. So that was the problem all along. The search disk was put on 180 degrees off. So now I have the yellow line unit stepped up to double. So what we can do is light this line, since it's a yellow line. So that would be 19, 24, and 20. And the odds are at the same spot. So we should get 12 credits when we do that. And that worked. As you saw, it first awarded 6 credits, which was the normal amount. Then it gave me the rest, added to 12. That is normal. It will sometimes do that. That's all dependent on timing. So now let's do a 4 in a row. So it will normally give out 18 credits for a 4 in a row. So when I put it in the number 8, we should get up to 36. There it is. So the score multiplier credit payout problem has now been fixed. And so with the score multiplication issues fixed, Night Club is now a 100% working bingo machine. And so I could either end the Night Club restoration series here, or I could go about doing a wood trim panel restoration like I did on my Catalina pinball machine, where I would go about and either remove all the trim pieces or keep them in place and sand them down and put new layers of clear coat on them just so they look a little bit better. I don't know if I want to do it on this machine though, because it's kind of worse for wear already. So let me know what you think about this machine. Should I restore the wood trim pieces like I did on Catalina, or should I leave them as is so it looks like it has a little more patina? I could go either way, so I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. So thanks for watching part 3 of the Night Club restoration series, and I will see you in the next video.